Hi, friend. Ashley here. Welcome to the Unlock Your Dream podcast. I'm here to guide you along your journey to unlocking your dreams to achieve the best life that you can imagine possible. From my journey in medicine as a PA and then some in the corporate world, I always still desired a little bit more out of life. It wasn't until I met some people who had seen their dreams realized that it occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, mine could come true too. Come along with me as we get to know some of these friends of mine and hear their stories of unlocking their dreams. Hey, friend, welcome back to the Unlock Your Dream podcast and happy new year and happy 2025. I am so excited to introduce you guys to my friend, Mary George, who was raised in Snow Hill, North Carolina, where she and her husband actually still currently live. And I'm just so excited to share with you her story and her background. For those of you from North Carolina, she graduated from East Carolina University with a master's degree in accounting and became a CPA. So yes, you're right. We're going to be talking fashion today a little bit, but that is a CPA background, which I'm so excited to dive into. She's worked in public accounting for nearly 10 years. And for as long as she can remember, she wanted to create her own clothing line, which again, so pumped to dive into just how you unlock that dream. And she's currently working remotely for a CPA firm and started to work on the launch of her line a year ago, which is so exciting. So I'm just going to let you dive in, Mary George, to your story, your journey, anything that you want to talk with about us today. Welcome to the Unlock Your Dream podcast, and thanks for being on.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today. So like you said, I grew up and I currently live in Snow Hill, North Carolina, which is a tiny, tiny town. And creating my own line has just always been a dream of mine. There are so many designers that I look up to, and probably 5-ish years ago, I was just kind of like, what if I did this? Both of my parents have kind of always pushed me to chase my dreams, no matter how crazy they are. And with the support of my husband, I was just kind of like, there's no better time than now to do it. So I kind of started by doing a ton of research and I read a bunch of books. And I just always got busy with other things and it just kind of got back burner. But as an accountant, I just kept getting this creative nudge that it was just something that I really wanted to do. So I ended up hiring a consultant the first 6 months to kind of get me started. And I've been going at it on my own since June. And I've kind of leaned into my love for interiors. While we were renovating our house, I realized how much joy interior design brings me. And I just thought there was like a beautiful connection between fashion and interior design. And it still feels really surreal that I've made it this far. And I'm so excited that it launches next month. It's so crazy. And I feel like looking back through journals, I feel like that's something that I always do every morning. I try to have like quiet time and like looking back at journals from like 2019. This was like something that I wanted to do for that long. So it's just crazy that it's finally come to life.
That's so cool, girl. Yeah, there's so much in there, y'all. I feel like talking about unlocking your dream, I mean, for you to take the time to, 5 years before you started, I don't want to miss that gap in there. And journaling, I think you're so right. It's sometimes we forget who we were last year, 5 years ago, but it's like you get to go meet with that girl from 5 years and be like, okay, the dream was there. Like, I'm not crazy.
Yes,
But also just in your transition, I mean, obviously, like you said, you're a CPA during the day. So that's a little different brain than
for sure.
for those of you who are watching the video, I would highly encourage, if you're not, hop on the video to see her house behind her. Like, there's so much beauty and color, and it's bright and it's bold, and you can totally
Thank
see
you.
your passion for vibrant design. And it's so funny to think of like the black and white boxes of the CPA life. But how did you make that transition? I know you gave us a little bit of insight and maybe like the background of books and research, but how's the transition been from CPA to fashion designer? Because also, like you said, you're in both worlds right now too.
Yes, yes. It's definitely a little crazy. I feel like I try to do early morning work on the clothing line, returning emails and kind of figuring out what the next steps are for that. And then I work 8 to 5 on my regular job. But it's always nice to kind of unplug and dive back into something more creative. And that brings me so much joy.
That's so good. Yeah. And I don't want to miss that either. Like it's not just the full transition. You're taking time to calendar block your day to get your entrepreneur stuff done. You're still showing up and sowing good seed into your 8 to 5 and not cheating that. But then you're also probably going back in at night too and diving into emails and all that. And I love that it takes some time, in this entrepreneur journey. You don't make a 180-degree switch. You have
For
your
sure.
in both worlds, and I think that's
Yes,
so,
it's
so
definitely been
neat.
a little crazy, but
How did you transition from having the consultant? So obviously some help at the beginning, and I love that you would, just be vulnerable and humble enough to be like, hey, I need some help. I would have this dream, but I want some help. To then moving forward to, I mean, look at you, like running it by yourself now. It's just such a big deal.
So basically, I was like, there's no way that I can start this from the ground up by myself totally while working full time. Like, I just don't think it's going to work. So my consultant kind of helped me make connections with the factory and that kind of thing. And that helped me a lot and just introduced me to the right people. But after the 6-month contract was up, I was kind of like, I feel like if I don't go in it and get my hands dirty myself, I'm not going to learn every aspect of the business. Like, I want to know each part, how everything works.
Hmm. That's so good. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I'm the kinesthetic learner. Like, there's only so much you can learn from a book until you literally go.
Right.
You have to
Do
make
it
the mistakes
yourself.
yourself. You have to, in my opinion, failure comes in between, on the way to success. It's not either or. So maybe those failures, quote unquote, which you can probably bring us some light into some of that and things that maybe seemed like failures in the beginning, but looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, I would have never learned this lesson without this, or wouldn't have been as confident
Right.
as I am in this. Is
For
there any of
sure.
those
Yeah.
along the way that you're like, man, I had some challenges I had to overcome or some lessons I had to learn to get where I am?
I feel like when I started my fall collection, I was doing it totally on my own. And that was like really a learning experience for me. I booked a flight to New York with my mom and went to the showroom in New York to start on the fall line, like sorts of fabrics and all of that. And I was stressed big time about that trip. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, do I know what I'm doing? And I feel like it all just worked out. Like, things that I stressed about so much, like looking back, I thought like this is going to be so hard. How will I figure it out myself? And it turns out that like it wasn't bad at all. And I was able to figure it out. I guess everything, you're able to figure out everything. Like, if you want to figure something out, you can figure it out. And that's just something that I kind of had to tell myself. And, I had so many people telling me that I would not be able to do this by myself. And I feel like there's just nothing that motivates you quite like someone telling you that you can't do it.
Amen. That is like, I feel like the entrepreneurs bet me. I can't.
Yes.
Like what, like you said, I mean, probably other things in your life, even becoming a CPA, like you learn what you learn in school, but probably the first day that you logged in at your corporate job, at your, had your client, you don't have the books and the help. It's like you're diving in and you're learning hard. And same thing with this, like it's awesome, girl. I mean, I think for those of us who are listening, I mean, I thankfully am in fashion too, so I understand that a little bit. But I mean, you don't think about, you're working a year in advance. So for you to be like,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to go and start this from scratch. I mean, you'd have a little bit of guidance on your first launch, which we're so excited to talk about in a little bit. But I mean, for you to go tackle fall all by yourself, in New York City from Snow Hill, like the whole thing, that's not a small thing. And I think just seeing your bravery, even in the beginning, is really inspiring to the pieces that are coming from the brand. That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Obviously, for those of you watching too, you can see my sweatshirt is a Luna sweatshirt and it comes from Luna Marketing Studio, which is thankfully how Mary George and I got connected. And so much of our stories has come from being connected to amazing entrepreneur women across the South. But what would you say are some of the connections that you built or some of the community that you've made that's helped to get you where you are today?
Like, my connections through the Southern Sea have been just limitless. I've
Mm.
reached out to so many members. Michelle Bradley Robertson, she's also in North Carolina. She's an artist turned fashion designer herself, and she has the most beautiful prints. And she's helped me so much and cheered me on. Sarah with Taylor, she also, as soon as I met her, she called me and was like, I'm cheering you on. I'm in your corner. Like, whatever you need to talk about, I'm here for you. And just being able to connect with women that are doing so well in their own businesses, it's just crazy how much support there is for other women-owned entrepreneurs. So that's been great. And I'm also in another membership called Carolina Women's Collective. It's based mostly in North Carolina. It's kind of a newer membership, and I made some great connections there. So I feel like the best thing for me with connections is to just ask. All they can say is no. I mean, I've reached out to so many people in the Southern Sea, and everyone is always willing to talk to me. I went to Round Top in September with the Southern Sea, and I talked to so many people that kind of like you and me start out in one industry and just totally change lanes. And it's just cool to hear so many people's stories from where they started to where they are now and how they got there and their experiences, even if they're not doing the same thing that I am. It's interesting that there's so many similarities in our stories.
Yeah, I can totally relate to as far as the Southern Sea goes. I think it's really special coming from, from both of us, a little bit of a corporate background. And for me, even in medicine, there's a little bit of that like competitive clickness or like, everybody can't win. There's not room at the top for everybody to be number one. And I feel like in this space, there's just not that. It's everyone cheering each other on. It's how can I help you? Here's what I've learned. Here's who I have connections to. And it's really special to be in a place, like you said, where you look around and you're like, me too. Like you've done something else and
Yes.
you made a switch. That's awesome. And just that bravery, sometimes that's really good to hear that maybe, like you said, a lot of people maybe were like, you can't do that or discouraging you. This is a totally different vibe of like, yes, you can. And I'm going to help you. And we're going to support each other. It's just such a special community of people to be a part of.
Yes, for sure.
That's so cool. Well, how have you balanced? Obviously, you're a CPA, your wife that you mentioned. Now you're a fashion designer and a CEO and a female founder. How do you find the way to balance all these roles with the 24 hours that you're given every day?
It's definitely a wild ride. I had lots of late nights and early mornings. I'm finishing one job and jumping right into the next. But my husband has been a huge supporter and he always pushes me and he's willing to help out around the house or even with the fashion stuff that he can. I'm always joking with him that in January when the clothes come in, he'll be helping me pack boxes and he's like, I'm ready. And I'm like, I don't know if you know that I'm serious, but you actually will be helping me pack boxes. So it's just nice to have a husband that's super supportive. And I just feel like sometimes I'm like a browser with a million tabs open and I'm like, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. But somehow it all manages to get done.
That's such a good metaphor. I can 1,000% relate. My actual laptop, but also I feel like my brain at all times.
Yes.
Oh, so good. Well, that's really special to have, just someone that you can be so supportive with at home, and totally agree with you that he's going to get some new titles coming next month.
Yes.
So diving in a little bit to obviously next month, which is huge, that it's going to be February 2025, and so soon.
So soon.
And do you have a specific launch date we can look out for?
It will be February 15th. And I'm also actually doing a pop up with Hibiscus Linens in Soho in New York at Round Top Makers. She has a pop up, I think it's for the whole month of February, and I'll be there February 15th.
That is so exciting. Okay, that's like the
Yes.
perfect Valentine's Day gift, ladies. Just
Right?
text your credit card or just tell your man, like, it's okay that you waited. Just like, let's log in tomorrow and buy something new together. That's
Yes.
awesome.
I'm super excited.
How would you describe your first collection? So obviously you had some help with sourcing fabrics and the incredible connection to your factory. And I know you did some work in some showrooms, but what can we look for on February 15th when we log in?
I feel like it's very Palm Beachy, very bright colors, lots of pinks, lots of greens, blues. It's really fun, and I don't know. I feel like Palm Beach is like the perfect like spring break vibe that it's going for.
That's awesome. We were just talking before we logged in. It's a little chilly today, and I was just saying her fabric always reminds me of just spring and warm vibes. So I think we're all going to be ready to go on launch day. And then other than your pop-up, is your website the best place to find you to get connected?
Yes, so my website is marygeorgedesign.com, and then follow me on Instagram at marygeorgedesign and sign up for emails to stay updated.
That's so exciting, girl. And to have your namesake as your brand, I mean, that's a huge, not a small thing. So it just shows that you've like really poured your heart and soul into something that I really believe in. And we're excited to see. I don't know if you want to leave the CPA world or if you want to stay in both, but we're excited to follow along on the journey and encourage you. And I'm so excited to see this go live and start to wear some of these pieces. But
Thank
for those
you.
of you guys who are in New York, share with your friends, and you guys follow along on the Unlock Your Dream podcast too. We'll be sharing on launch day and just cheering you on. It's a really exciting day. And as someone that's been working kind of parallel with you, it's a lot of work that goes into that when the website goes live, and you've done a lot of background. We were talking earlier, you guys, about like, you don't think about what color your thread is or where your tag is or how your hang
Yes,
tag hangs until you really dive into this space. And so I can promise you how much work she's put into this, and we're so excited to cheer you on and see it come to life.
thank
Is
you.
there anything that you wanted to chat with about or that we missed or that you wanted to dive into?
I think so. I think we covered it all.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I am so excited to get this out to y'all and to hopefully just see your pieces whenever you guys shop. Tag the podcast and tag Mary George on Instagram. We'd love to see how you style them in your Palm Beach vibes. I know a lot of people are doing resort and fun trips going into spring break. It's such a fun time. And then obviously we'll be really excited to see the fall collection too that you did solo, which is so fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story and being brave and all the things that you shared. And we'll put all that good stuff in the show notes for y'all. And you have a wonderful day. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, friend, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Feel free to share this podcast with another friend who it may inspire. Leave a review to possibly be featured at the beginning of another episode, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the stories that could help unlock your dream for you.